After breaking a decades-long playoff drought in 2022, the Seattle Mariners have just barely missed the playoffs each of the last 2 seasons, winning 88 and 85 games in 2023 and 2024 respectively. They've built their organization from the ground up, drafting and developing their prospects very well, making a couple really important trades, and building an incredible pitching staff. With one of the best starting pitching groups in the majors, a solid bullpen, and a couple solid minor league pitchers on the way. Unfortunately, their offense is a big struggle point for them. They play in one of the biggest pitchers parks in all of baseball, and it really shows in some of their offensive statistics. Can the Mariners do enough offensively to make the playoffs in 2025? Let's dive into the 2025 Seattle Mariners organization. We'll get started with some team ranks here. All these are completely objective. My rankings formula is going to be in the description, and their major league roster came right in the middle of the league at 15th, led by a number 1 ranked major league rotation, a number 5 ranked major league bullpen, but a lineup and a defense that lag a bit behind. Their lineup does do some things pretty well. They have a couple real solid players in there. I'm higher on them this year, but they finished 18th in my rankings last year, and their defense was 22nd. Some solid defenders, but some areas they don't defend super well. Their farm system is one of the best in all of baseball, with a crop of hitters that is absolutely disgusting. A few solid minor league pitchers as well, and this farm system comes out as the number 3rd ranked in all of baseball. New manager here in Seattle, Dan Wilson, in his 2nd season after he took over as the manager midway through last year. They finished 21-13 when he was here managing the team, so a lot of success under him. Took over after Scott Service lost his job at the end of the season. I'm not a big time, I think a manager does a ton for a team guy, but I do think they played really hard under Dan Wilson. A lot of new principles under him, and I think there's a lot to be excited about with Dan Wilson moving forward. Jerry DiPoto here as the president of baseball operations. This will be his 10th season in Seattle. Actually a pretty solid record for him, 701 and 655, only the 1 playoff appearance since he's been here. 85 and 77 last year. They were 2nd in the American League West and 7th in the American League. Got off to a very good start in last season, but really struggled down the stretch until the firing of Scott Service. Just missed the playoffs, 7th in the American League. Their payroll in 2024 was $144 million. This year goes up just a little bit, $152 million on that payroll. The PECOTA projection system has them expected to take a leap in the win total, 87 and 75, and finish 4th in the American League. They do have both Houston and Texas ahead of them in the division though, so they do see the AL West as the AL Central of 2025. Their playoff odds for this season, 62.7%, so pretty solid for them. In terms of top 100 draft capital for them, they did really solid in the lottery, winning the number 3 pick. They will have number 35, 57, and 91, so 4 picks in the top 100 for them. A lot to bolster their farm system with. Their top contracts, Luis Castillo making $21.6 million, Mitch Haniger $17.8 million, and Julio Rodriguez on that long-term deal here in Seattle, $17.4 million for him. Last made a playoff appearance in 2022. Before that, it was 2001, so a long time between playoff appearances. Here's to hoping it doesn't happen again for Seattle. And then park factor on the bottom. You see it at 91, league average is 100. This is a number that shows how much of a pitcher's park or a hitter's park you are. It'll go into your park adjusted stats in baseball like weighted runs created plus, etc. The Mariners are dead last, so that means Seattle's the biggest pitching park in all of baseball. We'll really see how this affects some of their offensive numbers when we go through the rest of this video, but it's definitely a big thing for them in Seattle. And then in terms of organization success, really good for them. Tacoma, AAA, 82 and 68, AA Arkansas Travelers, 80 and 57, Modesto Nuts in High A, 73 and 57, and then the Everett Aqua Sox, just under 500 at 64 and 68. In terms of season storylines for me, the first one is obviously going to be hitting. For Seattle, that's going to be the same thing almost every single year. They brought in Edgar Martinez to help out this hitting crew, a whole new philosophy on the hitting side. Hopefully they can do a lot better this season. I feel really good about some of the hitters in this lineup. We'll get into some individual stuff later, but I think they can take a leap forward in 2025. Wide Open American League is the second one that I have here. I think the Seattle team is really solid, and really the American League kind of took an overall step back the past few years. A couple teams did make up some ground, such as the Red Sox. The Rays are getting a lot of guys back from injuries. Some of the AL West teams like Texas should be a lot better this year. But I think the American League is as wide open as it ever really has been. I think this is a year Seattle can really capitalize on that and make a playoff run. And then finally, mixing in youth. There's a couple guys on this roster right now, guys like Ryan Bliss, Emerson Hancock, and then some guys through the system, Cole Young, some of the young young outfielders that could maybe make an impact on this Major League roster in 2025. How does Seattle mix in the youth to their equation this season? One thing you'll hear a lot about Seattle is they don't do a lot in the offseason when they're in their window. I'm not going to go into the specifics on it. I just really want to dive into the players that are here. So I will go over this offseason really quickly. Not a ton going on here for Seattle. Donovan Solano brought in on a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. Really solid stats for him last year. Rowdy Tellez on a minor league deal. He'll most likely make this team on the bench. And then Austin Shenton, not currently projected on the Major League roster, but brought over in a trade with Tampa Bay this offseason. These three guys will most likely make up the bench for a majority of this season. A couple solid bats here in Solano and potentially Tellez. I think they can make up a solid bench here. And then for subtractions, Josh Rojas went over to the White Sox. A pretty solid first half for him last year, but kind of struggled down the stretch. Justin Turner over to Chicago. He did have a really good season here last year for Seattle offensively. Yimi Garcia over to Toronto again. And then Luis Urias to the Athletics just recently, .2 WAR in 2024. So not a lot out, but not a lot in either for Seattle. Kind of going back to 2025 with the same crew that they had out there for the majority. Before I go into specifics on the lineup, I'll talk about weighted runs created plus really quickly. Think about it as an overall measure of productivity offensively. 100 is going to be league average for that stat. Everything above or below that is going to be the percent better or worse that you were compared to a league average hitter in this season. So for example, Victor Robles in 2025 is projected to be 7% better than a league average hitter, and we'll get started right there with him. The right fielder came over from Washington, had a real solid season for Seattle last year. An incredible base runner, a solid defender, not going to bring a ton offensively, although he did have a really good stretch last season. 36 projected stolen bases next year, 2.3 WAR. Julio Rodriguez, the superstar of this team, projected 35% better than league average, almost a 30-30 season and over 6 WAR. Cal Raleigh, the best catcher in baseball, potentially, I would say definitely the best catcher in the American League right now after a tough year from Adley Rutschman, but projected to be 20% better than league average, 30 homers and over 5 WAR. Randy Arozarena here as the left fielder over to Seattle from Tampa Bay at a trade mid-season, 22% better than league average on the projections, a 22-22 season and just under 3 WAR. Expecting big things from Randy this year. Luke Raley, a freak athlete at first base, 17% better than league average, 20 homers, 10 steals, just under 2 WAR from him this year. One of the two guys on this roster that has under 3 years of service time. I'll go over the next one here. Ryan Bliss, the 9-hitter, the second baseman. Some really solid numbers from him. I'm really excited to get into his breakdown. I think I'm expecting a pretty solid year from Ryan Bliss offensively in 2025. Mitch Haniger, the designated hitter, a real tough year last year for him, but he's projected to be about league average as a hitter, give you 12 homers. JP Crawford, another guy who had a step back offensively in 2024, but I think a really good player. Projected just over 3 WAR. Jorge Polanco, another guy in this lineup, really struggled last year, but projected to be an above average hitter. 18 homers, just about 2 WAR next season. On the bench, a couple solid players here. Dylan Moore projected the most WAR out of all of them. I would expect him to play a lot in 2025, 1.5 on the projected WAR. Mitch Garver, a good backup catcher, had a tough year offensively last year. And then the two guys they brought in this offseason, Rowdy Tellez and Donovan Solano, to shore up that bench. And let's get into the best rotation in baseball. Unfortunately, George Kirby sounds like he's going to start the season on the injured list. I will go over him and do a breakdown of him, but this is going to be the projected opening day rotation. Logan Gilbert is going to be the star here. 3.5 WAR on the projections, top 30 at his position in projected WAR, almost 200 innings, a 3.46 ERA. Luis Castillo just missed the cut of the top 30, but projected a real good season, not as many innings, but a real good ERA. Bryce Miller, Bryan Woo, both two real solid pitchers that have had a lot of success in the major leagues. Woo has missed some time with injuries the past couple years, hasn't really given the full season that a couple of these guys have, but I really like him. Bryce Miller, another really fun pitcher, a lot of good metrics from him. And then Emerson Hancock, kind of the interesting one in this rotation. He'll likely start the season as the 5 starter with Kirby being injured. I'll do my breakdown of him in the prospect section, although he's not technically a prospect anymore. Projected 64 innings on the season and a 4.67 ERA, although those would be a lot worse than his career norms. Other contributors to this rotation, I mentioned Kirby, Blas Castano, and Logan Evans, a couple of guys that will most likely get some innings this season. We'll get into this bullpen, and one of the best closers in Major League Baseball, and Andres Munoz, incredible K numbers, really good at limiting hard contact. Will get bit by the home run ball here and there though, and that's why the ERA is a bit higher some years. Love Andres Munoz as the closer here. Colin Snyder, really underrated setup guy, some really good metrics, a decent season for him last year. Gregory Santos missed a big portion of last season with an injury, but a stud reliever brought over from the Chicago White Sox in the last offseason. Trent Thornton, a really solid pitcher, really good numbers from him last year in a lot of innings. The two lefties here in Taylor Saucedo and Gabe Spire. Casey Legumina brought in this offseason in a trade with Cincinnati, but wasn't projected any WAR, so that's why he wasn't in the offseason additions tab. Carlos Vargas here to be a long guy. Not a ton of success in his major league career, but some really good metrics I'll get into when we go over the bullpen stuff. Not a big name bullpen by any means, but I think a really solid one. A lot of good pitchers here for Seattle. Before I get into specifics on these breakdowns, go over a couple numbers here really quick. Weighted runs created plus, league average again is going to be 100 for that. WOBA stands for weighted on base average. Think of it as a way to measure how you get on base. A homer is weighed more than a triple, which is way more than a double in this calculation. League average for that stat is 310. All of the percentile ranks on the screen are going to be run values from Baseball Savant, so offense, base running, and defensive run values. And then on the Baseball Savant card, going to be a lot of plate discipline metrics, some hard hit rate metrics, and then expected stats alongside defensive and base running metrics. We'll get started here with Cal Raleigh, one of the most valuable catchers in baseball. 5.3 WAR per 162 the last 3 seasons. Gets a ton of his value in the fact that he's one of the best defensive catchers in the game, one of the best framers in the league, and can really throw out runners as well. He does a lot of things behind the plate. Also derives a lot of value offensively from his power. His hard hit numbers are outrageous. The barrel rates are really solid for him. He'll walk a lot. He's really a 3 true outcomes hitter and a new age baseball player. Will strike out a decent amount. The plate discipline numbers aren't incredible for him, but he does so many good things offensively and with those defensive metrics to make up for that strikeout rate. A guy who's really settled into his role and been a very similar hitter the past 3 years. 748, 762, 773 OPS, 34, 30, and 27 homers the last 3 years for Raleigh. He took a big time step forward in some of the hard hit metrics this year, and he also underperformed a lot of his expected statistics last season. So I would almost expect Raleigh to have a better season offensively in 2025. A guy that's going to be out there almost every single day. 153 games last year for Cal Raleigh. Really not too much else to say about him. Just one of the best defensive catchers in the game. Big time pop, can do a lot of things at the catcher position, and a switch hitter in Cal Raleigh. And then the backup catcher here, Mitch Garver, a tough 2024 season, only in 88 weighted runs created plus, so he was 12% worse than league average as a hitter last year, although he did have some metrics that were all right. The average exit velocity, barrel rate, and hard hit rate were both about league average. 114 games for him last year, 15 homers, not as much of a defensive catcher, about league average in that area, but when he's on, he can really hit. A big time 2023 season for Mitch Garver in Texas, an 870 OPS, 19 homers, and 344 plate appearances. Big time hard hit rate numbers. The walk rate was great. Not a guy that's going to chase a lot, but just came over to Seattle and really struggled. We'll kind of see that as a bit of a theme with a lot of these guys that come over to Seattle. Not sure if it was the age catching up to him a little bit. 34 years old, was whiffing a lot more in Seattle, or if it was the park really catching up to him. That's something that did seem to affect him last season. But Mitch Garver, I think he can come back and have a solid year here in Seattle. I don't think he's a 627 OPS hitter by any means. A really fun one at first base here in Luke Raley. One thing I want to mention with him, the dude's 6'5", 235, and he's 90th percentile in sprint speed. Before I get into anything else, that is just a crazy number that popped off the screen to me. 30 years old, 29% better than league average last season, 22 homers, 11 steals, 137 games for him. He was in the 78th percentile of run value last year. Another guy pretty similar to Cal Raleigh that is going to have some hard hit numbers that are pretty good, although not as good as Raleigh's were, but does really struggle with the strikeout rate. Unlike Raleigh, he doesn't walk as much. The plate discipline is really just an issue for him in general, but he definitely does do some really solid things at the plate. The bat speed's really good, so you can see why he's hitting the ball so hard. Another guy who had a really solid 2023 with a different team. He was with Tampa Bay, came over to Seattle, and the numbers did take a bit of a hit, although not near as much as Garver. He still had a great season last year. A lot of the metrics were very similar for Luke Raley, a guy that plays a bit of outfield and first base. Again, I mentioned some issues with the K's. Not going to bring you a ton of value offensively. I think he really figured out Seattle, though, in the second half, at 895 OPS and 12 homers and 186 plate appearances. I like Luke Raley to have a really solid season here as the first baseman for the Seattle Mariners. So Ryan Bliss, 25 years old, got a little cup of tea at the major leagues last year, 33 games, and he was pretty solid here, 1% better than league average, 2 homers and 5 steals. Really like what I see in terms of the hard hit rate for him. Definitely a big plus in that area. He seems to be a pretty solid defender. The sprint speed is really good for him. So if he can hit the ball pretty hard and that chase rate's going to be pretty low, I think there's a lot to build on from the age 24 season of Ryan Bliss. Definitely did struggle a bit with the whiffs last year. He was striking out a decent amount, and the expected numbers didn't really like him, but they did like him more than what he gave last season in terms of results. Some really solid minor league stats for Ryan Bliss: 2024, 93 games in AAA and 833 OPS and 12 homers. Also stole 50 bags down there, so he's a big-time speedster, a real good base runner. I think Ryan Bliss is a really good high floor player at second base here for Seattle. I'm glad that they found him and they're using him at the major league level as their primary second baseman in 2025. When I go over some season predictions, I'm definitely going to have Ryan Bliss as one of my favorite players to watch on this team. So Jorge Polanco here, the third baseman, came over in a trade with the Minnesota Twins before last season, really struggled in Seattle after he came over. A really solid hitter for his entire career. 789 OPS in 2023, a 751 in 2022. Last season, just a 651. A lot of the hard hit numbers really went down for him last year. The walk rate also really tanked. It went from 98th percentile to 70th. A guy who's not going to bring you a ton of value in the base running or defense department, so he really has to be a good hitter to bring a lot of value. Club option was declined last year, but Seattle brought him back on a one-year deal with an option that could vest for 2026. Another guy here that I think kind of figured out Seattle as he got going. Second half, a 740 OPS, 11 homers and 230 plate appearances. In 239 plate appearances in the first half, just 5 home runs and a 567 OPS. So got off to a real slow start. I think Jorge Polanco is definitely going to have a better season this year, but it's kind of starting to mount up guys on this roster that you say, I think they'll have a better year. I've always liked Jorge Polanco's profile offensively, though, and I think that he's going to be a solid third baseman for the Mariners. JP Crawford here at shortstop. He's been here for a very long time in Seattle, and another guy that just really had an offensive setback in 2024. 11% worse than league average, 9 homers, 5 stolen bases, only 105 games for him, though, so he did miss a decent amount of time. Still really good in the plate discipline areas for JP Crawford, a really solid base runner and a well above average fielder at shortstop. Just 9th percentile in run value from him last year, and that was a huge step back from what he has been in past seasons. An incredible year in 2023 from him: an 818 OPS, a 380 on base percentage. A lot of the metrics honestly aren't very different. The expected stats did like him a lot more. He was hitting the ball in the air a lot more. Maybe one of the weirdest things I've ever seen on a baseball savant page: 2023, an 845 OPS against right-handed pitching. 2024, a 564 in 308 at-bats. So a guy that had really been successful against right-handed pitching in the past just really took a step back last year. Post All-Star, a 529 OPS, so he really didn't get going as the season went on. But he did have a few injuries last season, didn't play the entire year, so I think that might have factored into the offensive issues last season. I would expect, again, JP Crawford to probably take a bit of a step forward in 2025. Randy Arozarena came over from the Tampa Bay Rays in a trade at the deadline last year, was really good offensively last season, one of the better hitters on this team. In terms of overall season stats, 80th percentile in offensive run value last year, 14% better than league average, a 2020 season, 154 games for him. Really good plate discipline in terms of the walks and chase rates, but he is going to whiff at a lot of pitches and he will strike out. The hard hit numbers are solid, but he hit the ball on the ground a lot last year. His launch angle sweet spot percent, or the amount of time that he's going to hit the ball between 8 and 32 degrees in the air, was in the 4th percentile in all of baseball, and I think that really hurt his offensive productivity. Another guy here that we saw underperform some of his expected numbers. That expected WOBA, although not much higher, is going to be a bit higher than what he gave last year. Pretty big step back from him offensively in terms of overall numbers in 2024, 789 and 772 OPSs in 2023 and 2022 respectively. In terms of how he did when he came over to Seattle, actually a bit better than Tampa Bay last season. A 733 OPS when he came over and a 712 in Tampa. So he actually ended up being one of the better hitters on this team down the stretch. A 733 OPS in Seattle is going to be a lot higher at other parks. Didn't catch as many barrels last year, and I think that might be something to be worried about for next season, but I don't really see it as a long-term issue. He is still hitting the ball pretty hard, just needs to hit the ball in the air more, and I think he could have a great 2025. Julio Rodriguez here in center field, the superstar of this team, a super prospect coming up through the system, and has been very valuable to this team. Almost 6 WAR per 162 since he came up. Really rebounded his numbers in his overall season after a real tough start in 2024. 16% better than league average, a 2024 season for him, 143 games, really solid defensively. Struggles in some of the plate discipline areas, doesn't walk as much as he has in the past either, but the hard hit numbers are very good. Another guy here who underperformed the offensive metrics. I'm expecting Julio Rodriguez to have a better season in 2025. The last 2 years before this, an 818 and an 854 OPS. Really the only things that have changed for him is the K rate went down a little bit in 2023. The walk rate was up, so not a ton to really take away from it. I think he still does a lot of things really solid at the plate. It's impossible not to talk about the slow starts with Julio though. March and April last year, a 485 and a 625 OPS. In May, a 688. June, a 574. Pre-All-Star, a 690 OPS. Post-All-Star, an 818, so exactly where he was last season. It's been a theme over his entire career. He just gets off to really weird starts. April was a bit better in 2023, but still not Julio level. Did some looking into it. The bat speed goes down. The launch angles go down in April and May in his career. I can't really understand why it's like that. If anybody has any insight on that, please leave it in the comments, but he's a really, really good player, just really struggles out of the gate, and that hurts his overall numbers. I love Julio Rodriguez, though. I think he's the best center fielder in baseball. Just put it together for a full season, we might see an MVP guy. Victor Robles came over from Washington after he was let go and had a great season in Seattle last year. Really figured out the park. 41% better than league average, a 307 batting average, 381 on base. Really solid defender and a really good runner. He had 34 stolen bases last year in just 91 games. I don't think he's the hitter that he gave last year, but I think he took a big step forward in a lot of areas offensively. If Victor Robles can give you those expected numbers this year, I think that's still a really plus from a right fielder here, a guy that can lead off and steal a lot of bags. A former top prospect of the Washington Nationals, a guy that just didn't really get it going offensively ever in his career before last year. A couple good signs in 2023, but a bad start to the season, and he was let go by Washington. Really jumped up in a lot of the metrics. I liked a lot of what I saw. I'm going to say it again. I don't think Victor Robles is 41% better than league average, but I think he could definitely be a better than league average hitter in this lineup, and that's huge for this team. Mitch Haniger here at DH, a guy that took another pretty big step back offensively, although I do think some of the numbers here are pretty solid. A guy that, again, I'm going to say it, he underperformed his metrics. He had a 292 expected WOBA, 277 WOBA. The average exit velocity is pretty solid. The barrel rate, the hard hit rate did strike out just way too much last year for Mitch Haniger. Guy who can play outfield, but I would expect him to get most of his time at DH this year. 2 tougher seasons from him in the last 2 years, the 620 OPS last year and a 631 the year before. A 731 though in 2022. A big step back against left-handed pitching last year. That's usually his calling card. A 706 OPS against them in 2023. A 764 in 22. Last year, just a 486. So he was not hitting the left side, and that really hurt his overall production and what he could bring to this team. That's really what he's here to do. I think that's a trend that I don't see continuing in 2025. I think he'll hit lefties better next year, so I think a better overall season is going to come for Haniger. Into this bench, I'll also mention Miles Mastrobuoni as a guy that might make the major league roster, a utility guy that can kind of play everywhere at left-handed bat. Currently listed by Fangraphs as a guy on this bench is Rowdy Tellez, a big-time power bat that has really struggled the past couple seasons, was with the Brewers for a long time, so I got to watch him every single day. Sometimes can be a really tough at bat, but when he gets it going, he hits the ball harder than almost anybody in the league. 30 years old, 132 games last year, just 13 homers, 10% worse than league average. A sneaky, really good pickup in Donovan Solano this offseason, 18% better than league average on a really small deal, 37 years old. Pretty solid bat to a ball guy. And then Dylan Moore, a guy who I expect to play a lot for this team. 32 stolen bases, a really good base runner, can play really everywhere. 2.6 WAR per 162, above average as a hitter last year. So not the deepest bench in the world, but a couple guys in Solano and Moore that I think will contribute a lot to this team. We'll go into the real good part of this team. We'll get started with the pitchers here. I'll go over a couple numbers real quick. On the card, I went with WAR per season just because of the pitching injury. So if there was a missed season, I accounted that into the calculation. FIP is going to stand for fielding independent pitching. Just think about it as a long-term indicator of how the ERA should be. So we would expect Logan Gilbert's ERA to be closer to 3.27. Stuff Plus and Location Plus, two models built by Eno Saris at The Athletic. Just a measure of how good your stuff and location is compared to league average, that being 100. The pitch usages and miles per hour are going to be on the bottom left, and then on the right side are going to be run values. Again, pitching, fastball, breaking, and off-speed run values. And we'll get right into Logan Gilbert, really the ace of a staff that has 5 number ones on it. 3.23 ERA last season, just about average on the stuff. The location, 7% better than league average. The metrics loved him last year. That expected ERA is actually lower than what he gave. The walk rate is incredible. He's really solid with locating his pitches, really good with the whiff and K rate. Will give up some hard contact. That's really the only thing that he doesn't do really well. The fastball velo is really good for him. The extension is 100th percentile, so that means he releases the ball closer to the plate than any pitcher in baseball. 100th percentile in pitching run value, 91st in fastball, and 96th in the off speed last season. So he was the best pitcher in run value in all of baseball. Guy who's been nails in this rotation, 3.23, 3.73, and 3.20 ERA the past 3 years, 33, 32, and 32 starts. A lot of the same from him all 3 seasons. The fastball actually got much better last year. We saw him tick down the fastball usage a bit and making that slider his primary pitch last year, and I think that really helped his fastball show out. Love Logan Gilbert, a really good number 1 in this rotation and potentially a Cy Young favorite. We'll talk about George Kirby, down with the injury right now. I do think he's going to make a majority of his starts this season though. A 3.56 ERA last year, but the FIP was a bit lower, so I think that ERA will come down when he gets back. 10% better than league average. The location, the stuff is also above league average. 191 innings for him last year. Big time control guy, 99th percentile in the walk rate. The breaking pitches and fastball are both incredible for him. That splitter is nasty. The 4-seam and sinker both really good. Kind of middling in a lot of the metrics, but does really good at locating his pitches, so I think that's really where he makes his money. Again, 3 really good years from him in the last 3 seasons. 3.53, 3.35, and 3.39 ERA. The off-speed pitches did take a bit of a step back in terms of run value, so they got hit a lot more last year, but it didn't really hurt his overall numbers. His expected ERA actually went down a bit. Kirby is one of the best control artists in the game, gonna be here for a while. Hopefully he gets back from that injury at full strength and can make most of his starts this season. Luis Castillo, brought over in a trade with the Cincinnati Reds a couple seasons ago, and he also would probably be a number 1 in a majority of the rotations in baseball. 3.64 ERA. The FIP was a bit higher for him, so he did overperform a couple of expected metrics by a bit, but I think he's still a very good pitcher. The stuff and location is above average for him. Really solid again and not walking guys. The K rate is about middling, but he gets a lot of chases on his pitches. Will give up some hard contact. That's really where I think the FIP goes up. The barrel rate is not very good for him. Took a bit of a step back from a really solid past couple seasons last year. A 3.34 and a 2.99 ERA those past 2 years. The metrics didn't like him as much last season. Wasn't getting as many whiffs on his pitches, but his chase rate was still pretty similar. Very similar in all the pitch usages. The fastball was just a bit better in terms of run value in 2023, 99th percentile. I do think Luis Castillo has a lot going for him. I don't think as good as Gilbert and Kirby, but still a number 1. Bryce Miller, a 2.94 ERA last season, 3.58 on the FIP, so maybe that ERA will come up a little bit, but one of the best fastballs, if not the best fastball in the game, with the sinker and the 4-seam fastball, both very good pitches. 100th percentile in that fastball run value. He ended up being 99th percentile in pitching run value last year. A guy who's going to throw 7 pitches, but only 3 of them over 10% of the time. Another guy really good at not walking batters. Will give up a lot more hard contact than these other guys though, and that's why his FIP is so high. The expected ERA number doesn't like him as much, but still a 3.72 on the expected ERA. This guy would be a 1 in most rotations. That's how good this Seattle rotation is. His second season of getting run at the major league level, a 4.32 ERA in 2023, 25 starts, although the metrics were a lot the same. same. He was giving up a lot more hard contact that year and wasn't striking guys out as much. Cut the four-seam usage by almost 16% last season, introduced that sinker a little bit more as well, and he really became a great pitcher last year. A guy who can hit you from so many different angles with all these different pitches, will throw a majority of them to both sides as well. Love Bryce Miller as a 4 in the Seattle rotation. I mean, Bryan Woo as the 5 starter here. Are you kidding me? Seattle, a 2.89 ERA last year, 3.40 on the FIP, but the expected ERA was 2.72, so a guy that got really unlucky with the batted balls last year. 98th percentile in pitching run value in just 22 starts. He might be my favorite out of all of these guys. 6% better in stuff, 8% better in location than league average. The changeup was a positive pitch for him, 78th percentile. The off-speed right about league average, doesn't walk anybody. Again, 100th percentile in walk rate. And this guy does not give up barrels either. 91st percentile in barrel rate. The hard hit rate and average exit velocity are both above average. Again, a guy who came up in 2023 and kind of struggled, a 4.21 ERA, although the metrics were very good for him in 2023. 2024, a bigger sample and much better results. He has missed some time with injuries compared to a lot of these other guys. Hasn't given all of the starts, 22 and 18 starts the past 2 seasons. But Woo does seem healthy coming into 2025, so I think that's a big positive. I'm a big fan of Bryan Woo. Again, a guy that I think could be a 1 in a majority of the rotations we've gone over, the 5 starter here in Seattle. That'll bring us into the bullpen here, and we'll get started with Andres Munoz, 26 years old, struck out over 33% of the batters he faced last year, but will walk a lot of guys, 11.2% on that walk rate. Still a 2.12 ERA and a 3.35 FIP last year. Really good with the stuff, 13% better than league average. The Baseball Savant page looks like the My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy cover. There's red all over the place. 90th percentile in all of the K rates, the expected stats, the hard hit stats. Again, will give up some barrels though, and the walk rate isn't very good. That's really his only flaws. Colin Snyder was not familiar with your game. A 1.94 ERA last season. The FIP is a bit higher though. We'll see that in the Baseball Savant stats, but the stuff and location well above average. The strikeout rate just about 28%, and that walk rate just about 8%. Big step forward in terms of results for him last year. A 1.94 ERA compared to a 4.87 and a 6.55 the 2 years before. Average exit velocity number, one of the best in all of baseball. The K rate and whiff rates are pretty good, but gives up a lot of barrels, and the ground balls just are not there for him. The expected numbers, 3.97 on the expected ERA, so not great, but not bad either. Do really like the numbers he gave last year though. And then Gregory Santos here, a Savant darling. Only 7.1 innings last year, was dealing with a ton of injuries, but a 3.39 ERA in 2023, does almost everything well. That fastball isn't as good as the other pitches, but the off speed and changeup are really good. 2.35 FIP last season. The stuff and location are right about where they were when he was with Chicago. Expecting a pretty big season out of Santos, but can't say a ton just because of the really small sample last year. Really good metrics on his part in those 7 innings though. I think a good back end of this bullpen here in Seattle. Rest of this bullpen, Trent Thornton was the big innings guy out of this bullpen last season. 72.1 over there, 3.61 ERA at 3.47 FIP last season, 26.2% on the K rate. Doesn't walk a ton of guys. A big time pitch mix guy as a reliever too. We'll see that in Taylor Saucedo as well. Another guy who gave some innings last year, 38.2. The ERA and FIP are both pretty solid, 22.9% on the K rate. He will walk a decent amount of guys though. Both will give up some hard contact here and there. I think Thornton had a bit of bad luck with the batted balls last year. 3.34 expected ERA, does a lot of things well alongside Saucedo. A good righty and lefty at the top of this bullpen. Casey Legumina brought over in a trade with Cincinnati. Not great stats from him last year, but I will say, a guy with big time chase numbers. The walk rate, barrel rate, and ground ball rate are all really good. I think what Seattle's going to do is they're going to have him come over here, throw that slider a lot more. It was really his best pitch by far last season. A really interesting one to have on this Major League roster, but I definitely see the vision in Casey Legumina. Some really good metrics for him. Just gave up too many hard hit balls last year. Gabe Spire, maybe the biggest candidate for bounce back in 2025. A 5.70 ERA and just 23.2 innings, but a 3.50 FIP. His big issue last year was the control, man. 13.5% on the walk rate last season. But a guy that gets a lot of strikeouts, a lot of the metrics are really good, gets a lot of whiffs. The expected ERA last year at 3.31, so you definitely see a bounce back for him. 2 really good seasons before this, a 3.79 and a 2.33 ERA those 2 years. I think a lefty that will have a really good season in 2025, just really needs to bounce back after that tough year. And then Carlos Vargas, right-handed pitcher, was over from Arizona in a trade a couple off seasons ago. Spent most of the season in the minor leagues last year. Some good numbers. The K rate and walk rate are not great. The ERA was all right, but the FIP didn't really like him. Just 4.2 innings in his major league career. Some of the metrics are really good. When he was up in the majors, 31.8% strikeout rate, but gave up a ton of hard contact, and that really hurt his expected numbers. Not sure what to expect out of Carlos Vargas, although he has had some pretty good signs here for Seattle. I think a big-time bounce-back bullpen and a couple guys in Thornton and Saucedo that were very good last season. Very excited to get into the top prospects for the Seattle Mariners. We'll get started with the number 16 player in the top 100 by Baseball America, Colt Emerson. Shortstop, third base prospect, just 19 years old, already in high A and really crushing it last season. 19% better than league average, 375 WOBA. Some really good tools for him too. The hit tool is definitely his carrying tool there at a 60. About an average defender. I think maybe a third baseman over the long term, but definitely a very advanced hitter for his age, just 19 years old. The 22nd overall pick in the 2023 draft, and a guy that didn't play very much last season, fractured his foot in May and only had 70 games, but a big time impact bat, could definitely be an above average defender at third base as well. Definitely a very advanced hitter for his age. Colt Emerson, a very fun prospect to watch. Cole Young, out of these three, definitely I think the closest to the major leagues. 21 years old, got to Double-A last season. Another really good year there for him. 19% better than league average. Another really good hit tool here. 60 on the hit tool. The run, field, and arm about average. Not as much power as Emerson, but a really advanced hitter. Another first-round pick for Seattle, this time in 2022. Was committed to Duke. Seattle signed him away from that. Already got up to Double-A at age 20. Good runner as well, stolen more than 20 bases in both of his full seasons in the minor leagues. A guy that gets on base very well, definitely seems like a top of the order back, most likely in my opinion going to be a second baseman long term. The fielding is more of an average tool for him, but another top 100 prospect in Cole Young, and a guy that I think will be in the majors either late this year or maybe early 2026. Johnny Farmelo, another top 100 prospect, this time number 70. He had better numbers than all three these guys last year, but he was just in low A. Modesto, 124 weighted runs created plus, a big time runner in Johnny Farmelo, but unfortunately a guy that tore his ACL last season, and I'm not sure if the athleticism is going to be 100% the same, but I'm hoping a really good athlete. Last season in 46 games, 18 stolen bases. Farmelo was the first prospect incentive player drafted in the history of the draft. Seattle got the pick to pick Farmelo because Julio Rodriguez won Rookie of the Year in 2022. So kind of a cool story there. Not as advanced as a hitter as these other two guys, but I think a much better athlete and a higher floor for Farmelo. Not sure when he'll be back from injury, but he has been very good in the minor leagues. Expect a lot from Johnny Farmelo moving forward. We'll get into notable infield prospects here and three more top 100 guys in this infield alone. We'll get started with Michael Arroyo, 20 years old, got up to high A last year, number 77 in the top 100. Another big time hit tool here. Very advanced hitter for his age. Got on base at over a 41% clip in 2024, 23 homers for him. Not a great defender at the position, but is definitely a bat first guy. I would expect him to be in Double-A at some point this year. Felnin Celestin, please don't kill me if I said that wrong. 19 years old, but a guy that was really solid last year. In the complex league, slugged 568 there, and it really has good pop off of his bat. A 50 hit tool, a 60 power. Really good defensive and base running tools as well. This is one of the guys I could see rising up the top 100 so quickly. A big time shortstop, could definitely be a long-term middle of the order bat. Harry Ford, one of my favorite prospects in all of baseball, down to 95 in the top 100, but a guy that's still been really solid in the minor leagues. I think definitely a catcher long-term, but I don't know if Seattle's going to be able to have him catching with how good Cal Raleigh is. 82 stolen bases for him in his 3 full seasons in the minor leagues as a catcher is pretty crazy. Still developing definitely as a catcher. I think he'll end up being most likely a DH, maybe first base type guy, but he could be an outfielder with these tools. Big time plate discipline, really solid in the hit and power tools as well. I really like Harry Ford long term. Tyler Locklear got up to the majors last year, kind of struggled, but has had really good minor league numbers, really solid on the hit and power tools, a big time college bat out of VCU, and a second round pick in the 2022 draft. Not a great runner, not a great fielder, but just really good offensive numbers in the minor leagues. I would expect him to be in the majors this year. And then a second round pick in Ben Williamson from William and Mary in college, and a big time analytics guy. Great plate discipline skills, 55 on the hit tool, but not a ton of pop in that bat. A really solid defender though at third base. Gonna start this season at AA. I would definitely expect him to be in the majors sooner rather than later. Another top 100 prospect here in Lazaro Montes, 97 in the top 100 by Baseball America. Big time international signing. Kind of struggled so far in the minor leagues though, but I think his power tool is really going to carry him through the system. 70 on that tool. Not much of a runner, a fielder. The hit tool definitely has some questions, but big time pop in that bat. Really struggled when he got up to high A last season, so we definitely need to see him have some more success for him to be called up soon, but still only 20 years old. A guy that I would expect to get a lot of seasoning between high A and AA really soon, but still a top 100 prospect. Ty Pete here, the number 15 prospect in the system. 343 on base last year for him, a 408 slug. Drafted as a shortstop, but he's really played a lot of positions in the minors. Third base, outfield, a very high ceiling guy that definitely does have a long-term project ahead of him. 40 on the hit tool, but a lot of the other tools here are really good. The power, run, field, and arm all over 50. Jared Sundstrom, another college bat in the draft. It was at UC Santa Barbara in college. Got up to high A last year and hit really good there. 380 with the on base. 13 homers in 112 games. Definitely has some pop in his bat. A 55 power tool and a pretty solid runner there in the outfield. Definitely a toolsy guy here. One that's definitely going to need some seasoning though. Yorger Bautista, the biggest international signing out of this 2025 class for the Mariners. Really good tools for him. Has yet to play in the minor leagues, but a guy to watch moving forward. And then Rylan Thomas, an unranked prospect, but a guy that is a great defensive outfielder. I would expect him to be up in the majors at some point this year and provide a lot of value defensively. I'll start with Emerson Hancock here in the pitcher section just because he will get a lot of innings at the major league level this season. A 55 on the fastball, 60 changeup when he was in the minor leagues. He's 25 years old now, has had 2 seasons of run in the majors. Not a ton of success yet for him. 15 games started, a 4.71 ERA and a 5.42 FIP. A guy that has had really solid minor league numbers. Former 6th overall pick in the draft out of Georgia. Really good metrics in 2023 in just 12 innings, but got out there for just about 61 innings last year and really got roughed up. Gave up a ton of hard contact and couldn't get strikeouts. I would expect Hancock to take a bit of a step forward though in 2025 as he gets used to pitching at the major league level and will most likely open the season as the 5 starter. The first switch pitcher that I've ever talked about in my entire life. Angelo Cinche out of Mississippi State. Yes, pitches from both sides. A 60 on the fastball, 50 slider, 45 changeup, 55 curveball. He was the Mariners' first round pick last season, 21 years old. Didn't make his pro debut last year. Let's talk about him a little bit though. As a right-handed pitcher, he sits about 94 to 97 on that fastball and can get up to 99. From the left side, sits about 90 to 94, so not throwing as hard, but still really good from the left side for him. He's always going to have an advantage on the hitters. Cinche mostly pitches from the right side and uses his left side for some significant left-handed split guys at the plate. So he's not a straight right-left guy when he's going to switch every single time, but he'll pick and choose his spots, and I think that's really cool for Cinche. Definitely going to expect him to make a major league debut at some point, but I would expect most of this year to come in A-ball. I will definitely be following him. 2 guys in Brandon Garcia and Logan Evans I would definitely expect to be in the majors very soon. Brandon Garcia, a lefty, more of a reliever than anything, a really solid fastball and slider, some really good minor league numbers for him. Logan Evans, 23 years old, I'm going to expect him to start some games for this Mariners team pretty soon. Really good pitches for him. The fastball, curveball, and cutter all above a 55 on the grades. And then Ryan Sloan, a high draft pick last season, 3 really solid pitches, but has yet to debut for the Mariners in the minor leagues. I'll go over a Baseball America projected lineup and rotation as well. Their 2028 lineup, there's a lot to be excited about here. You still got Raleigh here and Julio Rodriguez, but outside of that, a lot of unknowns and a lot of these top prospects. Tyler Locklear, Michael Arroyo, Colt Emerson, Cole Young, Harry Ford they have in the outfield, Johnny Farmelo, and Lazaro Montes all on this projected 2028 roster. Definitely going to see a lot of turnover in terms of this lineup in the next couple of years. Not sure we'll get this many guys. I think maybe Crawford will still be at shortstop. A couple other guys still up in the majors, but I like a lot of these names here for Seattle. There is a ton to be excited about in terms of this lineup. And then you know the rotation is going to be good, man. Look at the names that are still here in 2028. Kirby, Gilbert, Woo, and Miller. And then Logan Evans, I mentioned as one of the better pitching prospects here. Andres Munoz, they still have as the closer. Notice how only 2 of these guys are over 30 years old. This is going to be a formidable rotation in baseball for years to come. Some of the best pitchers in the game, I promise you, will be in this rotation for the next couple of years. Love to see Munoz in there long term. I'm hoping that we get a couple of these minor league guys to come up and take up innings, and they do have Logan Evans doing that. I do really like him as a prospect. I think Seattle's a pitching factory, man, and they're going to pump out pitchers every single year. And that'll get me into some final thoughts here on the Seattle Mariners organization. I don't understand how this team didn't make the playoffs either of the last 2 seasons. I look at all the numbers. I see the offense is a bit of a struggle the past couple of years. I understand it. Dude, some of their players are just too good to put up the offensive seasons that they're having, in my opinion. I don't get the Julio Rodriguez thing. I think he's one of the best center fielders, if not the best center fielder in the game. Although he did struggle a lot last year in the first half, I think there's good hitters on this roster, and I think they're going to hit this year. I just can't see it happening for 3 seasons in a row. You know the pitching is going to be good here. That rotation is incredible. Legitimately, you could say there's 5 number 1s on this roster. They were first in all of the starting pitching stats last year. That bullpen, although not big in name value, has some very solid pitchers. I'm really excited for Gregory Santos this year. Saucedo and Thornton both very good, and Andres Munoz, one of the better closers in the game. When I do my season predictions, I'm definitely going to have Seattle winning the division. I can't see a way where Seattle can't do it 3 years in a row with this good of a roster. I really do think this is one of the better rosters in all of baseball. That pitching staff is miles and miles ahead of some of the teams that we've already done that are projected to make the playoffs. I love this Mariners team. I can't quit it. I got burned on them both of the past 2 years, but I'm going to say it again. I think this Mariners team is one of the best teams in the entire league. Their farm system's incredible. They're ran very well. I think they're going to win the AL West in 2025. I'm going to put that on record right now. So thank you guys. This was a very fun one to go through. This was a breakdown of the 2025 Seattle Mariners organization.